I missed my high school graduation so I could take care of my disabled brother because my parents had an important work meeting, and when I confronted them about it they refused to admit they were wrong. My younger brother Mike was born when I was 3 and he was born disabled, set to be bound to a wheelchair for the duration of his entire life and set to be mentally disabled as well. My parents ran their own business at the time and could not afford to deviate much focus from it, so from as early as 3 years old I was forced to care for Mike. I remember being 6 years old being left home alone with Mike, having to push him around in his wheelchair, feed him specific foods and play games with him, something I did not actually mind doing as I was connecting with him. However, over the years the burden of caring for Mike took a toll on me. I was never allowed to go outside and play with the other kids, I missed a lot of school and was never allowed to partake in extracurricular activities because of the fact I needed to care for my brother. I remember asking my parents why they couldn't do it and they said they had to focus on their business in order to be able to pay for all of Mike's treatments. I asked them why they couldn't have a caretaker and they said it's because they never trusted caretakers. My childhood was robbed from me because it was spent caring for Mike. I remember learning to drive at 14 years old and borrowing my mom's car so I could be the one to take him to appointments as my parents started neglecting both of us for the sake of their business. One thing to note was that Mike, as much as it hurts to say, was and is a total vegetable. He struggles to speak, he cannot walk, he is allergic to a lot of food and struggles to communicate anything. I remember when I entered high school it felt like my parents had totally given up on caring for me or even Mike, as they had started taking vacations by themselves and put everything onto me. I had to miss a lot of my high school freshman year to care for Adam as my parents still refused to hire caretakers for him. I remember exploding at my parents during my sophomore year. I yelled more than I ever had in my life before. This happened because they told me they were going on a weekend getaway and would appreciate it if I canceled my plans to go camping with my best friend to care for Mike. I ripped into them for this, calling them manipulative and uncaring, greedy, selfish and pathetic excuses for parents who deserve nothing. They snapped back at me telling me I have no idea how hard they work to afford everything we have. I told them that there are families who are homeless who have more than us and left. They went on their weekend getaway anyway and I went on my camping trip, using my own money which I made by mowing lawns last summer to hire a caretaker for Mike for the night. Now fast forward to this year. I have somehow gotten myself through high school. I missed a lot of class due to caring for Mike and had to make up for it by pulling many all-nighters and studying for exams and catching up on missed classes. My parents never helped me either, expecting me to just figure it out. I grinded so goddamn hard to make it through high school and perform as well as possible in my exams. I was so proud of myself and was waiting for my high school graduation. I know it's only a high school graduation, but the amount of obstacles and adversities I had got through in order to make it here made me so proud of myself. I remember breaking down crying 2 days before my graduation because I was so proud of myself. The day before my graduation I asked my parents if they would be coming to it, and that's when they broke some news to me. According to them, they wouldn't be going. I sighed but was not surprised, and that's when they dropped a bomb on me. They said they had an important work meeting tomorrow, one which couldn't be rescheduled and one which would land them a huge client and make them a lot of money. They would really appreciate it if I missed my graduation to take care of Mike. I laughed and said no way, but they persisted and told me they needed me to do this. I told them I would take Mike with me but they said no, Mike can't handle social situations. This was true I suppose. Either way I argued, and they actually agreed to stay home and take care of him. The day after however, I woke up and saw my parents had left with no notice. I tried to call them but got no response. I realized they had done this on purpose as now I had no time to hire a caretaker for Mike last second, and so I stayed home. I stayed home and missed my graduation. I cried the whole time, bawling my eyes out and taking care of him. I wanted to hate Mike but I couldn't. It wasn't his fault, it was my parents' fault. When my parents came home later I flipped out on them, because the very first thing they asked me was how caring for Mike went. I told them very bluntly to F off and I never want to see them again. They told me not to be so rude but I went off on them at that moment, telling them I hate them, I despise them and wish every day that they were dead. They're dead to me, they mean nothing to me and I hope that a bus hits them and a fire burns down their stupid business. My mother cried when I said this and my dad chimed in to say that this meeting was more important than a stupid graduation. I went upstairs when he said that and have not spoken to them since. What do I do? It's now the summertime and I have decided I am moving out. It hurts to do this as I am leaving Mike behind and to be honest I don't know how my parents will care for him, but they will have to. I have dedicated my first 18 years of my life into doing so and will no longer cater to them whenever they please. The thing is, I feel no connection to Mike. I can't form a connection with him. I know he is my brother but I do not feel like he is. I never told my parents I am moving out and I do not plan to, as I know if I do things will get very bad and they will do anything to guilt me into staying and caring for Mike. Edit. My mother found out I was planning to move out by going through my emails. She confronted me about it. I was backed into a corner by both her and my dad and forced to tell the truth. When I did, they instantly berated me, telling me that by doing this I was ruining their life, taking away their business and asking me how they were supposed to keep living in this house if they had to care for Mika themselves. I told them it's up to them to figure that part out, because he is their son too and they should act like it. I told them that God himself would look down on them in disgust. This evidently hurt my mom as she started crying. She is super religious and believes she lives her life in the way of God. I saw that this affected my mom and maybe this was bad of me, but I dug deeper. I told my parents that God would despise this act of theirs, that they are pursuing greed, pursuing materialism unrealistic values in life and totally neglecting love for their children. I told them that if God really did exist, they would have to do a lot to make up for their actions. This seemed to get through to my mother as she asked my dad to talk alone upstairs. They came down an hour later and both told me that indeed, I was free to move out whenever I wanted as I am 18 and should have the right to do so. I'm currently looking for apartments and trying to leave ASAP, but I am hopeful for change as it seems like my parents are trying to care more for Mike. My mom actually cooked food for him yesterday, something she has not done in over a year.